Look at that. If you can somehow see through the grimy haze of my damaged telephone. I bought this phone new, I guess maybe a little over 10 years ago. And within 24 hours of buying it, dropped it on the ground, broke the screen, cracked the lens. So everything that I do on this camera, this telephone, has a sort of haze to it. And since I'm streaming with my camera, I am now in reverse. Everything is backwards. You are not dyslexic. You are not hallucinating. You are not losing your mind. Hopefully neither am I. Let's find out as we get down into this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Yeah. First, let me get rid of this backlit effect because that's no good. I had this problem last week. I got this sort of halo effect, but I'd rather it be from my deeds than from a light bulb. So hold on a second. Get rid of that. That's going to get a little more mellow and a little bit less harsh on the scene with our telephone machine. Everybody's coming through. Hello, Mike Lesser. Mike, are you back from Japan? What's up? Alan Versapellis is here. Wesley Dixon is here. Moose Roberts from the great state of Tennessee is here. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's good to have all of yous here along with those who I can't see are actually here. So yeah, a whole lot of technological bourgeois. I'm on my phone reinventing the concept of lo-fi with my weekly video stream. Yes, this is about as low and un-fi as it can get. I'm going to scoot it on up closer so I can be framed a little bit better. You guys have heard me bad-mouthing Mevo a lot. Mevo is the streaming app that I use normally to do Tent Talks Tunes. And Mevo is totally in Dutch with me these days because their streaming app, their app stopped working and nothing I did on my end could make it work. That's been going on for several weeks now, but I will give them a little bit of credit, just a little bit, just a smidgen. I have been in communication with, I don't know if it's a real-life human being or whether it's a bot or what, but I've been in communication with Mevo, and either a human being or a bot is working with me to try to fix the problem so I can get back to streaming in a somewhat higher quality video and audio rate than I've got now. But in the meantime, we just got to kind of bear with what it is that we got, pretend everything that you see is not in reverse, and welcome aboard for this really super duper lo-fi version of Tent Talks Tunes. It's been a very, very busy week since I last got to hang out with you guys. Oh yes, very busy indeed. Let's see, we got people messaging me left, right, and center. Sorry guys, I can't talk while I'm on the air. I have to devote my attention with laser-like focus, or maybe blinkered focus, to the task at hand, which is Tent Talks Tunes. Extremely busy week. Oh, my stars and garters. So much going on the last week. We had the Danbury Record and CD Expo on Saturday, which was great fun and most productive. And got to hang out with a lot of people and brought in some really cool stuff. And I had to give many updates over the course of the day as to the status of my move to North Carolina. So I've got it pretty well rehearsed right now and even somewhat updated, so I will share it with all of yous out there right here, right now. As it stands right now, the signs are looking very good that we are on the verge of wrapping up the sale of my home. We have been signing contracts. I am getting a termite man out to look at my tool shed in a couple of days. Having the septic pumped. These are all like little tiny details that are required in the buyer's contract that they want me to do. I started getting mail addressed to the guy who wants to buy my house, so I guess that means something. I mean, that's moving real fast. So you figure if I'm getting mail addressed to the guy already here at this address, then the odds must be pretty good. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what I'm hoping. So I'm going down to Charlotte, North Carolina again next weekend because, as you've heard me talk about before, December 7th at the Milestone in Charlotte, North Carolina. Not 50, not 51, 2, 3, not 54, but 55 years of the Milestone. It is an anniversary show for the Milestone. Double nickels for the Milestone. 55 years as the Southeast's premier independent concert venue. You want to name a band? They most likely have played the Milestone somewhere in their storied career. It has happened. It's always an honor and a thrill and a pleasure to tread the boards at the Milestone along with the other ghosts of the past and extremely creative presences of the present. Don't let anybody tell you there's no good music out there, my friends. There is tons of good music out there right now in every corner of the world. And a lot of it is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we are absolute chuffed. The band I'm in, it says Nisitna in reverse, but it is anti-scene. We are dead chuffed to be celebrating 55 years at the Milestone. We are playing there on December 7th with our good friends Future Hate from Mobile, Alabama, and our other good friends Dallas Tetanus from Raleigh, North Carolina. Dallas Tetanus is headed up by Mr. Greg Clayton, younger sibling of Jeff Clayton, former drummer of Anti-Scene, and his band rocks. They rock really well. They rock really hard. Future Hate, we've shared the stage with them twice on their home turf in Mobile, and they tore it up each time. And I am thoroughly confident that they will tear it up again December 7th at the Milestone. And you know what that means? When you got two opening bands and one of them is going to tear it up and the other one is going to rock hard, you know what that means? Do you know what that means? That means that we in Anti-Scene are going to have to work extra hard to bring you the entertainment package that you deserve and that you will have paid your hard-earned ducats for. Yeah, Anti-Scene never brings less than 100% to the stage no matter what. And anybody who's seen us knows that. But sometimes you got to bring 102% or maybe 104% or maybe 106%. That's okay. We like it. We are a band that is a hard-working band, and we like to work hard. We like to be the hardest working band in professional wrestling. And it gives us that bragging right that we covet so much. So December 7th at the Milestone, you heard me talk about it. You're going to experience it. A toast of Danbury Tap to that. So anyway, I'm driving there, and I'm loading up the van one more time. We're getting to the real serious nitty-gritty scrapings of stuff to take down in North Carolina before the final load. I'm just pulling whatever is absolutely not essential from my already 90% empty house. We're talking about bottles of vinegar from the kitchen, extra sponges from under the sink, empty tape boxes. I mean, just we're getting so down to the wire here. This house is getting emptier by the second. So it's getting very, very real. And I hope, knock on glass, to have something to report to you guys after December 5th. So for everybody who wanted to know how the sale of the house is going, that's how it's going. All eyes are laserly gleaming on December 5th on the calendar for some results. So there you go. Meanwhile, stuff's been coming into the mailbox. I am also, in response to many people asking, I'm still taking mail at the classic address, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. Yes, I know it's backwards. For those of you who tuned in late, sorry, that's all I got right now. Still taking mail at P.O. Box 3626. Will be for the foreseeable future. I renewed the P.O. Box for another 6 months, and once I'm in North Carolina, they will forward the mail to me. So it will get to me. And speaking of Alan Versapellis, there's an envelope from Alan Versapellis. Alan, what'd you send me, man? What did you send me? Eric Reno is tuned in. Hey, Eric, I'm waiting on your Discogs order. Just saying. Just saying. Eric, you want to know how honored I am? Check this out. Eric, I got your stuff cold right here and ready to be mailed to you. All you got to do is pull the trigger on it, man. Anyway, I digress. Alan Versapellis. You know, if it feels like a CD, if it's shaped like a CD, if it's about the same weight as a CD, it must be a CD. But is it? Just because it must be a CD doesn't mean it is a CD. Let's slice this thing open some more. Brute force. Simple tools. Simple machines. A wedge, I think that is. This is a wedge, right? Is a knife considered a wedge? Any of you science heads out there know the answer to that question? Does a knife qualify as a simple tool because it's a wedge? Does a knife qualify as a simple tool because it's a wedge? That's today's science question for all of you out there in TV land. The other question that we have right here. Yeah, Gary Childs wants to know if it's foggy in here. Sorry, Gary, it's my cheap-ass phone. I've been working for weeks trying to come to a solution with my streaming video host, and I've been getting nowhere, so I have to use this damaged phone. So it does look foggy, but I assure you that I am crystal clear. And here it is, guys. I'm assuming the brand new offering from Jello Swayze. Replace all churches with record stores. Can't say I'd argue with that. Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. This is going to be really cool. Something for me to listen to on that drive down in North Carolina. What are some of the song titles here? No More Love Songs? I'm all about that. Ancient Place, Made You, Animal Abuse, What I Want. Angel in a Sea of Sluts. Stay Away From Me. Yeah, okay, cool, man. Alan, thank you. Always a pleasure to get some Jello Swayze from you. I want to tell everybody right now that I dig Jello Swayze. Maybe you guys will as well. Alan, if you got some links, post them. Let the people know where they can find them some Jello Swayze. Because I think they need it. Now this is an empty envelope. We're not going to look at that. I got a package from my good pal Jason Romo in East Texas. You've heard the songs about West Texas. Jason's in East Texas. Whew. One thing about Texas I noticed when Anti-Scene played our little run of shows down there a few weeks ago, Texas has the largest numerical value mile marker I've ever seen in my life. I believe it was mile marker 887. I might have missed one or two. That was an Interstate 20, I believe, going all the way east across Texas. Mile marker 887. Maybe Alaska's got one higher than that. I don't know. But there certainly cannot be a mile marker in the continental U.S. with a numeric value that high. That's the kind of thing that you see on the road that makes going on the road, worth going on the road. Little tiny factoids like that, you know? I love that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm going to write this down, man. Mile marker 887, and is a knife a wedge? Because I need to put things onto my YouTube channel description when I post it. And I always forget these fine little weird factoids that pop up when I'm live. You know, trying to get the clickbait. You know, that's what I'm all about. Anyway, Jason Romo from East Texas sent me a package in the mail, and this is not really a cold unopening because at the Danbury Record and CD Expo, one of my fellow dealers needed a record mailer, an album-sized mailer. So in the spirit of Record Dealer Fellowship, I cut open the package from Jason and gave my fellow dealer the record mailer, which means I already saw what was in it, but let's pretend I didn't. Let's pretend this is a cold unveiling and I'm opening the box for the first time ever. Well, the first thing I noticed is that this Japanese 100 yen coin fell out. There was another coin, too, that fell out, and it rolled over across my living room. It's in a corner over there, but it is here. Jason knows me very well. He knows I've been a coin collector since youth, that cool foreign coins are a lot of fun. You can put them in your eye and pretend you're wearing a monocle. You can put them in your other eye and pretend you're wearing another monocle. Great party trick when you open your eye and you have it drop right into your hand. Another great party trick, you take the coin, you put it on your elbow. I don't know if I can do this sitting down, right? You see it's right there, the coin. It fell off, the coin on the elbow, and then you try to catch it, but you end up knocking it across the floor. One of my favorite party tricks ever. Love it. I better write that down too before I forget it. This really is a loose and informal edition of Tent Talks Tunes. I hope you guys are digging it. I know I am. So what did my pal Jason Romo send me? Well, he put some packing material in there. And the first thing I saw was, and this shows you how well Jason knows me, he knows that not only am I a coin collector, but I am the world's biggest sane Devo fan. Ha 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 ha. And that I will react with total glee over getting a copy on vinyl of Oh No, It's Devo. Let's take a look at the pressing. US pressing. Not cut. This record clogged the cutout bins for several years after it came out, but this was not cut. It's got the easel back. Don't know if you guys can see that on my cheap-ass camera through the fog and the mist. But it's got the easel back, so if you wanted to stand it up on top of your television set and look at the 5 Spud Boys, you could. We open it up. US Warner Brother pressing. Yep. With a semi, and I do say semi, custom label. It's your generic Warner Brothers label, but with some devolved typeface on it. Very cool. I can analyze this stuff all day, all night, and for the rest of tomorrow and the next day. Another item in there, I was not expecting this. How about this, guys? Oh, there it is. I was wrong, it didn't roll out. It's right here. A mysterious Texan medallion. Don't know if you guys can see this, but my specs aren't powerful enough to see what it is. Maybe AI can determine what it is. Maybe I'll put on 2 pairs of specs. Pride, respect, communication, Texas. It's heavy. It's got a good ring to it. Came up tails before I dropped it. Yeah, man. And it's from East Texas, specifically. Cool, Jason. Thank you. I'm going to gently put this down there. What else is in there? What kind of cultural detritus are we looking at here? Well, there's a wacky pack. Yes, you can have all the garbage pail kids you want. You can have all the baseball, football, basketball, trading cards. It's all about the wacky packs. Wacky packages. And here's one for pricier water. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Love it, love it, love it. And here we have something I was not expecting. A Sarcophago record. The Immortal Rotting album by Sarcophago. Cool. Peruvian pressing. It's either Peruvian or Brazilian. That's pretty cool. See, Jason also knows my desire for exotic foreign pressings. Well, let's see, it's got a correspondence address for Brazil, a label address for France, and, okay, I saw Lima in the address, but it's Lima in Brazil. So is it Brazilian or French? Kind of hard to tell. Okay, I'm going to guess this is a French pressing on Cogumelo Produces. No, it's got to be Brazilian. What do you guys think? Brazilian or French? Probably Brazilian. A mystery here on Tent Talks Tunes, and all of us vinyl collectors, records, freaks, and geeks just love this kind of stuff. Ah, there it is. It's Brazilian. It says right there in Portuguese. Something Brasileira. My glasses are terrible, but a genuine Brazilian pressing of Rotting by Sarcophago. Man, that's awesome. Thanks, Jason. And there's one more thing. The object that spurred this entire exchange of mail, wrapped separately in its own little bit of cardboard, 8.5 by 11 sized, and I guess I sort of gave away what it is already, didn't I? Well, there it is, guys. A signed promo collage sheet by Mr. G.G. Allen himself, for which I am trading Jason a stack of custom-made cassettes. And Jason, I'm working on cassette number 11 even as we speak. If you guys have sharp ears and you can hear through the audio fog of my cheap-ass camera, you'll hear the sound of a cassette recorder working double overtime to make cassettes for my pal Jason Romo. So Jason, I'm on it. And thank you for that great package of stuff. Very, very cool. Got another big old package in the mail. I didn't get this one until Sunday, but it's here. And it's from my good pal Holly, Newburgh, New York. And if you guys have watched Tent Talks Tunes more than once or twice, you know that Holly publishes a super fine, honest-to-jaw print magazine from the Hudson Valley of New York called Outsider Magazine. And I am a very happy contributor to every issue of Outsider Magazine. I write an article every whenever. I think she does them 4 times a year, every quarter. And, yeah. My article's in here. And if you guys write to me, for example, Jason Romo, Alan Versapellis, anybody who sends me something, I am very happy to send you a copy of the latest issue of Outsider, featuring an article by me. What did I write about in this one? I don't remember even what I wrote about. Article on hardcore teachers. I love that. I think I went through this episode on this issue already. Hardcore teachers, the Thrill House. Yes, my travelogue. There you go. Stories from the Road by me. So yes, thank you, Holly, for sending me these. They will be going out to all interested parties. Now, in spite of all kinds of stuff going on and me being extremely busy selling the house, Danbury Record and CD Expo last weekend, Anti-Scene gig in Charlotte coming up next weekend, living in a house that is virtually empty in the meantime, I have been keeping busy. Very, very busy. Last week I showed you guys a collage that I made, a genuine, honest-to-jaw collage made with scissor, paper, glue, and a big old stack of junk mail. And I made a collage, and I said that I was going to use the collage for cover art for some new Bunny Brains releases. Oh yes, the Bunny Brains. The group co-founded by myself and Bob Bunny in 1988. I stayed with that band until 1993, and then returned intermittently to do duty, usually as a drummer, sometimes as a bass player, until about 1997. And as is my habit, recorded every single show we played and every single rehearsal we played, and made a long-running series of live archival cassettes and CDs. And so I found a few in the vault that didn't have cover art. And I've gotten fairly adept at doing computerized graphics, but this time around I said, you know what? I don't want to do the computerized graphic thing. I want to go back to the spirit of 1994, 93, 92, 91, 90, when I would make a Bunny Brains cassette insert by hand with pen, ink, paper, scissors. So I designed some collages. And here you go, guys. Here's the first collage in situ as a cassette insert. And this is where I really regret the rotten quality of my telephone and the fact that it's backwards and everything looks like it's misty. But that's collage number 1 on the front cover of a Bunny Brains cassette. This was live in Newtown, Connecticut. January 20th, 1994, one of my guest spots. I remember that the Bunny Brains got this venue in Newtown and snookered them into, hang on for 1 second, guys. I have a message coming through. I'm on live, TTT. The Bunny Brains snookered this venue into letting them play. And if I recall correctly, the first time that the Bunny Brains played was pretty good. A lot of people came out, lots of fun. The venue sold a lot of drinks, no problem. Second week, not that great. Very few people came out. There might have been some drunken obstreperousness. Maybe the music was extra noisy and extra obnoxious. And that was the end of the Bunny Brains residence at Tom Sawyer's in Newtown. But hey, that's the way it goes when you're Connecticut's premier noise rock band. The cassette lives to tell the tale. With my collage on front, made just a few days ago. Here's collage number 2. It's like when you're using junk mail for source material, you can get all kinds of great social commentary. And I had a lot of fun making that collage with scissor and paper and glue. So much fun. That's the front of a Bunny Brains cassette. It's called Bunny Brains in Disguise. And this is from WPKN Radio in Bridgeport, Connecticut, March 22nd, 1994. Another guest spot. This was a reunion of the original 3 Bunny Brains. Myself, Bobby Bunny, and the artist formerly known as Egg the Poet. For the first time in many years, the 3 of us got together in the studio at WPKN with our good friend Amy Kalisher, who played drums and clarinet, and did a live off-the-cuff session, and it came out great. Never released it on cassette until now, and here it is with my collage. I promise you the actual result is not backwards, nor foggy, nor lo-fi. Actually sounds pretty good. And then I had a third one. I was going to make a third collage for it. I was going through my files. Now, does anybody out there grew up on Marvel comics from the 1970s, specifically 60s and 70s? Let me see some thumbs ups or some hearts or some smiley faces or something to indicate from you to me that you were a reader of Marvel comics in the 70s, or maybe the 60s, or maybe the 80s. James Pogo is, I see a couple other thumbs ups there. Mike Lesser says yes. Oh yes, we got a few Marvel Comics fans out there. 70s specifically. Well, I'm sure if you guys read Marvel Comics in the 70s, You'll probably recognize this happy graduate. I made a scan of this very pleased diploma holder and mutated him just a little bit to create the front cover art of this Bunny Brains cassette, recorded live at Trash American Style, Easter Sunday, 1990. And that was a fun gig. That was just a big old wall of noise, a tremendous din, but very pleasing to the ear and a lot of fun to play. And now it's on cassette. Where you can get it on my Discogs store. Look up TPOS on Discogs, and you will find it. Cheers. I said it before, and I'll say it again. My parting of the ways with the Bunny Brains was not pleasant. And it's a very fun factoid that of all the bands I've been in my entire life, and I've been in a couple, of the dozens and dozens of people who I've been in bands with, I'm on friendly terms with every member of every band except for several from the Bunny Brains. There are certain members of the Bunny Brains I just had to cut out of my life and not talk to or deal with anymore just because. Pretty funny. One band is the source of all the people I won't talk to anymore in this business, of which there are really only a few. Just a few. But they're all from the same band. Having said that, we made some darn good noise together, and our gigs, when we were firing on all cylinders, and the music was good, and the visual presentation was happening, it was a blast. So, I'm glad I got away from that situation, but I certainly had a lot of fun while it was happening, and I have no problem with documenting this stuff and putting it out in the public arena. At the Danbury CD and Record Expo, we got a visit from none other than the one, the only, the inimitable, the inscrutable, some might say insufferable, but definitely indubitable. Even in backwards, you can tell it is King Sexy. Yes, Mr. King Sexy paid a visit to the Danbury Record and CD Expo with his brand new full-length 12-inch single. He was kind enough to autograph one for me. I haven't heard this thing yet, but I already know it's going to be awesome. King Sexy is the real deal. He is one of the few outsider artists I've ever gotten to say in person, Jeff, aka King Sexy, you are a true outsider artist. And we talked about the definition of outsider, and we both agreed it was a good thing. Jeff is a man with a singular vision. He's a good guy. I love his music, and I cannot wait to hear this. Jeff, thank you. And I do have copies for sale. I got a few from him. And if you guys want one, talk to me. He will, of course, get his fair share of the dosh when it's doled out. Brand new 12-inch single by King Sexy. Very exciting. Some of the song titles. Are You Sexy Enough? Thanks for the Dance. Fake Nice. She's a Lady and I'm Sexy. What more do you need? 12-inch vinyl, guys. Nice heavy vinyl. 45 RPM. Long time coming. I'm glad I could be the probably the first to publicly announce the release of the King Sexy 12-inch single. 8 songs, no jive. Oh, and I didn't even see this. Oh my God. A lyric sheet. Thoughtfully provided. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And speaking of really cool Connecticut artistes who stopped by, bearing gifts, my old pal Stefan Christensen. Stefan has been at it for a very long time. He's a very tasty and tasteful purveyor of all sorts of stuff. And I never know how to pronounce the name of his label. I don't know if it's C-sit, C-S-I-T. I've never been able to figure that out. I'm going to do a very quick lookup because I can do this live here on Tent Talks Tunes. I'm broadcasting via my crappy phone, but I'm able to go on my computer right here, right now, and look him up and make sure that I get the name of his label right. Because I've never been able to do it. Ah, okay, there it is. CS, C/S recordings. If you want to look at a massive monumental discography, check out CS, C-Site Recordings. Stefan, quality purveyor of great noise and tasteful music. This is his latest, entitled In Time. And he did sign it for me, black on black. Let's see if I can find where he signed it. It's here somewhere. Not that anybody can see it with the cock-a-doo-doo telephone that I'm reduced to using. But it is here. Stefan, thank you very much. And I was quite happy to trade Stefan some of that Bunny Brains action for this album. Ooh la la. Okay, let's get back to the matter at hand, shall we? Ah, my good pal Malinowski from Willimantic Records in Willimantic, Connecticut says that, and he's got it right there in the comments. You can see how it's spelled. C/site is pronounced sight. So you guys, you saw all of my mumbling and fumbling and numbling about. Mal Inowski of Willimantic Records has published in person on the internet The Mystery Solved. And I'm going to like that right now. I just gave it a like. Yes. Live interaction here on Tent Talks Tunes. What else came through, man? This very nice couple of people stopped by. They drove all the way up from Norwalk to visit the Danbury Record and CD Expo. And they wanted to sell a late relative's record collection. Excuse me. They had some cool stuff. They had some Beatles and some Zappa and, some books and DVDs. The thing that I had the most fun with was a big stack of random blues 45s. Blues 45s on all kinds of labels that I had never seen before, never heard of before. All from the Gulf Coast. We're talking about Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, maybe some Alabama. All from the 70s and 80s. There's a couple of artists in there I'd heard of, like R.L. Burnside. Some bigger names like Otis Spann, B.B. King, obviously, but all 45s. And I've done some research on some of these. None of them are terribly rare. None of them are, like, gigantically valuable or anything. But, man, what a lot of fun to listen to. I've had a lot of enjoyment picking through these records, deciding which ones are going to go out on the sales floor and which ones I'm going to keep. Here's a really cool one by Aaron Burton called Garbage Man. It's a cautionary tale about how you better not underestimate the garbage man, because the garbage man knows all of your secrets. Were wiser words ever spoken? I ask you. And it's funny because I started writing a song a long time ago called The Garbage Man Knows All, addressing the similar topic. But what do you know? This guy, Aaron Burton, from somewhere on the Gulf Coast, on the Cleartone record label, did it in the late 70s. Well, you know what they say, talent borrows, genius steals, even inadvertently. Pablo Ghost Dancer Ellison says that he used to get the ones they would swap out at the Huddle House. Pablo, are you talking about waffles, pancakes, or records? Please help us understand what it is you're saying. The people need to know. I need to know. Hash browns. I do like me some hash browns. Grits are good. I've been known to trade records for food occasionally. This one's really cool. A guy named Carl Jones. Men Are Kicking on Me. I mean, anytime I see a title like that, I'm automatically intrigued. And this one is really, really good. Kind of sounds like 1968 Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green and the classic Mick Fleetwood, John McVie rhythm section. 1968 Fleetwood Mac with Jimi Hendrix singing. That's a burner, guys. That is a burner. I mentioned before Otis Spann, the great Otis Spann on the Excello record label. I never knew that Excello made 45s. Up into the 70s, I've seen plenty of 50s and 60s, 75s, and maybe even some 78s. But never a late period Excello like this one. By the looks of it, manufactured and distributed by ABC Records. You know, when you're a total record nerd like myself, you get to recognize the typefaces and the fonts. You can see the slug. It's the same size and same shape as the Dunhill ABC logo. So it had to have been an ABC product. Otis Spann doing Blues for Hippies. You put the word hippie in the song title, and I am on it. Blues for Hippies. And it's a weird one. I can't honestly understand exactly what he is singing about, but he does use the word hippies twice in the lyric. So, Blues for Hippies. Here's another one. Benny Lewis. I don't know who Benny Lewis is. Never, ever, ever heard of the Sahara record label. This one's good. Why Do You Do Me Wrong? I mean, normally a song title like that's pretty generic. That's fairly boilerplate blues title, but Why Do You Do Me Wrong by Benny Lewis is a hot one. It's a hot one. The music totally transcends the blandness of the title. And same deal, copyright 1976. Chicago-based label. That's interesting. Never heard of Sahara Records before. Never, never, never. It's the thrill of discovery, guys. That's what keeps us going. Here's one for you. Never heard of the Rooster Blues label, but apparently they put out a lot of stuff, including some foreign pressings. This guy, Ernest Lane. Doggin' No More. I don't know if any of these are posted on YouTube or not, but I think if you guys want to hear some really hot, non-generic, exciting blues, look these up. This is real good stuff. Yeah, Pablo. Okay, so Pablo was trading... Pablo, you were trading 45s at the Huddle House? Since I'm really intrigued by this, because I love places like the Huddle House, Waffle House, and the idea of Huddle House and or Waffle House having a record swap really blows my mind. Please tell me it's true. Tell me it's so, Pablo. And yes, it does bear a bit of a passing resemblance to the layout and typeface of the classic Mach 1 Casablanca Records label. Oh yeah, great stuff. Now, James Pogo. If James Pogo is watching, Pablo would get it when they dumped out the jukeboxes. Okay, yes, they empty out the jukeboxes and the records are up for grabs. Okay, I get what you're saying, man. That's cool. James Pogo last week posted a link to a record that I did not know existed. But the second I saw it and the second I heard it, I knew I had to have it. And what do you know? There was a guy at the Danbury Record and CD Expo who brought a whole table full of 60s and 70s garage, soul, R&B, dance 45s, including some real heavy hitters, none of which I could afford. But I certainly could afford to throw down $5 for a copy of Brown Paper Sack by the Gentrys. Yeah. James Pogo. I never knew this record existed until you told me about it. And then 4 days later, I ended up walking out of a VFW hall in Danbury with it. Thank you very much. We did speak last week about how the lead singer of the Gentrys was none other than Jimmy, the Mouth of the South Hart. And his band put out some fine 45s and a couple of pretty good albums, too. Yes! Pablo, you found some reel-to-reel tapes. I'm always interested in reel-to-reels, 8-tracks, strange arcane formats like that. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, speaking of things that I either didn't know existed or was made acutely aware that I was missing in my life, there's 2 of them right there. Don't know if I mentioned this, but a couple weeks ago, when coming back to Connecticut from the run of anti-scene shows that we did in Texas and Louisiana, I stopped by the city of Washington in the District of Columbia and visited my old pal and former Trash American Style employee, John Howard. And John Howard's a good guy with really good taste in music, and he whipped out a very strange piece of 12-inch vinyl. On the front, it had a very grainy, close-up picture of Mark E. Smith from The Fall. On the back, a very strange, grainy, close-up picture of Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones, with no name on it, no information whatsoever, and some very cryptic song titles on the label with the word faxed, as in sending a fax. Faxed. He put it on, and I was rocked back on my heels when I heard the sounds of the Rolling Stones' Emotional Rescue album with the vocals by Mark E. Smith from The Fall's Grotesque album, both of which came out in 1981, both of which I'm supposing had 10 songs, and which apparently had similar running lengths. And some genius out there used modern technology to lift Mark E. Smith's vocals from the Fall album and match them to instrumental tracks of the Stones' Emotional Rescue. It was great. It was so much fun. We played that whole thing from start to finish, and I was loving it. And as you can imagine, something like that, even if it does get posted on YouTube, it's going to be yanked almost immediately. And so I started doing a lot of internet research. I couldn't find the vinyl copy. I couldn't find it on YouTube. Couldn't find it anywhere. I ended up going down some real deep rabbit holes on the internet and finding a whole bunch of dead links, links to empty folders, lots of pointless discussion, but finally, excuse me, after much due diligence, I did find it. I did make a CD of it, and now I'm very proud to have a complete ridiculous DIY CD of Faxed doing Grotesque Rescue. Gotta hear it to believe it, kids. This is one of those things that if you love the Stones and or the Fall and or the absurd and the unlikely, yes, this gets my vote for absurd confection of the day. One of my favorite driving CDs. Love it. Thank you, John Howard, for turning me on to this. I never would have known if I hadn't stopped by to pay you a visit. Very cool. Human interaction at its finest. I see my old pal Ray Brennan just popped in. Speaking of DC, Silver Spring, Maryland, and the environs. Hello, Ray. Good to see you. I was just in DC recently. Should have checked in on you. Now, here's another thing. This is the last thing I'm going to show and tell here on this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. The final item that I came across. Now, here's the deal. My good friend Joe Snow, and yes, that's his real name, Joe Snow. He used to work for Trash American Style. He is now a full-time antiques dealer and estate sale liquidator He's got a business called Mechanica Antiques. He sells records. Joe came by to my great big moving sale. And he asked me point blank, he said, "Tent, you old creep, what's the deal with the Trash American style neon sign? The fabled purple, red, and green neon sign that hung in the front window of Trash American style from 1990 to 2007. The beacon in the dark, both the nighttime hours and the cultural darkness that surrounds us. The beacon in the dark for so many, for so long. Where's the neon sign?" I said, "Joe, it's in my shed. Do you want it?" He said, "Yes, I want it." So, okay. We went out to the shed. It's been sitting in there since the day I moved into my humble cabin in the woods 11 years ago. I made sure to put it as carefully as I could all the way in the back, braced up with some heavy boxes that weren't ever going to move. Because, like neon is very fragile. It doesn't take much to crack a neon sign. So I was trying to be very careful with it. So we carefully peeled away the layers and worked our way over to the neon sign, carefully took it out, and I gave it to Joe Snow. And Joe Snow is an honorable man. Joe said, "What do you want in exchange for it?" I said, "I don't want anything. I want you to have it." He said, "Well, I have to give you something." I said, "I'll tell you what, Joe. If you're going to insist on giving me something, I want you..." Nathan Yeager's tuned in. Nathan, I'm telling a story about Trash American style. Hope you caught the beginning of it. I'm talking about the trash neon sign, which I gave to Joe Snow. I said, "Joe, you're out there in the wild a lot more than I am. You're a guy who will spend all day, every day, going to the estate sales and the yard sales and the tag sales and the flea markets. You are much more diligent about it than I am. You find stuff that I ain't never going to find. So the next time, Joe Snow, you find yourself and I'm going to sidestep just a little bit here before I tell you what I wanted Joe to find for me. It is not, I repeat, not the rarest Beatles album. Not even by a long shot. If you were to look at the sheer numbers of this record that were pressed and distributed, you would see that it qualifies as probably semi-rare at best. The most reasonable estimates are that somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000 of these things are out there in the wild somewhere. Which, okay, maybe in terms of a band like the Beatles who have sold, what, 1 billion records? In terms of 1 billion, 500,000 ain't that much. But in terms of collectibles and collectability, 500,000's a lot, you know? We're dealing in, I deal in punk rock numbers. You're talking about pressings of 100, 300, 500. 500,000 is just not even on the charts, you know, in terms of rarity. 500,000 is common as far as I'm concerned. However, this Beatles record, of which there is somewhere around 500,000 of, is the one rare Beatles record that the general public know about. All the Joe and Mabels out there, all the Tylers and Caitlins, all the Dan and Bettys, all the regular Joes and Josephines all know about this record. They don't know about VJ number 498 with the 2 T's. Nah, even though that is far, far rarer. They don't know about the Capitol in-house promo version of Sgt. Pepper with the different faces on the front cover, of which only 100 were made. No, they don't know about that. They don't know about that one. They don't know about that one. They don't know about any of the Dick James Publishers acetates, of which usually only one per title were made. They don't know about that. They don't know anything about that. But they do know about this one, of which there's at least 400,000 out there in circulation. They all know about this one, which is why everybody wants it, and why prices for it are quite a bit higher. Prices for this one are quite a bit higher than probably any other record ever made, of which 500,000 were pressed. Now, of course, part of the allure is the fact that even though there's somewhere around 500,000 of these things out there, not everybody knows what they got. And that's the beauty of it. You really have to know your stuff in order to spot one of these things in the wild. And Joe Snow, as I said before, besides being a good guy, knows his stuff. And so I said, Joe Snow, I will give you the Trash American style neon sign, and all I want in return is this truthfully not very rare Beatles album, but I want you to find it in the wild. I don't want you to pay collector's prices for it. I want you, when you're out there with the flashlight at 5 o'clock in the morning at the flea market, squinting in the dark, looking through boxes of moldy old records, next one of these things you find, I want it. And I'll consider that to be a fair trade for the trash neon sign. And I don't care, pay $1 for it. To me, that's more fun. That's the most fun. If you pick this thing up for $1 somewhere, I love it. That's what I want. That's what's fun about it. That's the joy of the hunt, you know? And using that super secret insider information as a record freak, geek, nerd, weirdo record collector, that's what we thrive on. So Joe said, deal. We shook hands. And I knew he was going to come through. I had no doubt whatsoever that he was going to come through. Because another one of my dear friends, the late and great Jim Gibson of Noiseville Records, who is probably the most knowledgeable Beatles collector I've ever known in my own personal life. Jim was encyclopedic with his knowledge of the Beatles, and this record in particular. He said, Malcolm Tent, don't worry about it. Be patient, keep your eyes open, and you will find one. You will find one. And I always took that advice to heart. And you know, I had a couple of close brushes. I was at the flea market one morning when somebody found one. I was at a record show in Bridgeport when somebody found one. I know a friend of mine, my friend Chris Raz in Athens, Georgia, found one at a thrift shop for 77 cents. They are out there. I'm adjacent to having found them in the wild. I actually had one in my hand that I found in the wild at a friend's shop. And he had it severely underpriced. I could have bought it, but I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I had to say, look, man, do you know what you have here? He didn't even know what it was. I had to explain to him exactly what it was. And he said, oh, that's cool. And apparently sold it for big bucks later, and that was the last I ever heard of it. I had one in my hand. So I knew that Joe Snow was going to find one. And sure enough, last Saturday at the Danbury Record and CD Expo, Joe set up his table next to me and said, you should look through that box of records. There's something in there for you. I looked. What do you know? Doesn't take much. When you're looking through a box of records, you see the top of it, and you know exactly what it is. I said, thanks, Joe. He said, you're welcome. And now, I am the proud owner. This is actually the second one I've owned in my life. The first one I owned, I got back in 1986 when I worked at Open Books and Records in North Miami Beach. And a third state mono walked in the front door as part of a collection. And at that time, I paid a very respectable $35 for it. It was like my entire day's wages, plus $3. I had to collect my $32 pay and scrounge up $3 to get this. Glad I did it. But when it came time to move to Connecticut and open Trash American Style, had to raise the money, so my third state mono was sold. And I sold it for, at that time, the extremely healthy amount of $125. $125 for a third state mono. And so even though it's not the rarest, not even close to being the rarest, it's the one that everybody wants, and the story behind it is fascinating. You can do a lot of research on the Beatles yesterday and today. There are websites dedicated to it. There are discussion groups dedicated to it. There are experts on it. It's got the allure, it's got the mythology, it's got the story behind it. So everybody wants one. I always wanted one. And thank you, Joe Snow, who found one in the wild and might have paid $1 for it. Second state stereo. You can see it is second state. It's not in the best condition in the world. Seam is split. Tape on the top, tape on the bottom. It's got its fair share of wear and stains. The record is, you can't see it on my crappy phone. The record's the least important part of it, because these are just about maybe a nickel a dozen for original Rainbow Beatles albums. Record's beat to hell. It plays, but it's beat to hell. But the thing is, I like that. I love the fact that this record was purchased by somebody in 1966, taken home, opened. They played it to death. They used it almost to death. When the cover was totally split, they taped it shut. They taped it together and then played it some more and used it some more and loved it some more. And somewhere down the line, they gave it to somebody or sold it or just didn't want it anymore. And it went through how many hands? Who even knows? From one person to the next until it finally ended up in a box at a flea market. And the whole time, nobody knew. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew. That, to me, makes the object. That's what makes it cool. Yeah, it's one thing to have one that was sitting in a factory box, unseen by human eyes and untouched by human hands since 1966. Sure, that's cool. But this has history. This has stories behind it. This was actually enjoyed and loved by any number of people along the line. Until somehow, in a long, circuitous, tortuous route, somehow it ended up in my hands. Where I've already played it. I've listened to it. Plays like cock-a-doodoo, but it plays. And I can play that record and look at this cover and know that I'm part of the chain of ownership and or love for this culturally important artifact. And as far as yours truly, I have no plans to part with it ever. So thank you, Joe, for this. And by the way, Joe did get the Trash American Style neon sign fired up and running. It took him some work to do it because apparently one of the tubes was cracked. But he found one of the last remaining neon sign artists in Connecticut and got it fixed. So the Trash neon sign is up and running. It does exist, and it's on proud display in his home. And if you look up his Facebook page, you can probably see some photos of it. It looks fantastic. So thank you, Joe, for keeping the neon sign alive. Thank you for the record. And thank all of you people for tuning into Tent Talks Tunes. it is always my pleasure to go blah, 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 at you for an hour or so every week, because we're talking about music. We're talking about records. We're talking about culture. And as Frank Zappa said, music is the best. So if you guys are into celebrating holidays and all that stuff, I hope you have a good one coming up and some other good ones coming up further down the pike. Me, I'm going to sit around tomorrow and do basically nothing. And I'm going to enjoy every second of it. I hope you enjoy every second of whatever it is you do. As for me, I do intend to be back in about 167 hours. So until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.